Welcome to today's podcast. We have Ismail from Lagrange today with us. Lagrange has been on an amazing journey, amazing product. They had amazing fundraise and amazing token launch. And I think it's been so good to see the kind of progress you guys have made. So welcome to Ismail on this podcast. Glad to have you here.
Thanks so much for having me, Pratik. And I appreciate all the kind words. I think the fun thing about running a company is that things go well, things go bad. Things that go bad, you get to fix them. So we've been very fortunate to have a fantastic team at Lagrange, and a bunch of things have gone our way over the last couple of years that have let us build some incredible technology at the intersection of AI and ZK.
Nice. Cool. I think Ismail, let's start with, initial. What was that aha moment, right, where you really figured it out? Hey, this is what the idea that you want to work in, and particularly in Web3 part, how was your journey as well? And some part to that question is, founders initially in the early phases, they always deal with, should I go with this idea or that idea? So what is your playbook advice to them in this context?
Yeah. So I guess I'll go through both questions. So to start with, I used to be a venture investor prior to founding Lagrange. And prior to that, I ran digital asset strategy engineering for a large insurance company, Manulife John Hancock, that was based in Boston and Canada. But so basically institutional finance or TradFi, or I guess it's more financial services actually. But digital asset strategy and financial services, then venture investing, then founding Lagrange. That's my background. And so the early days of Lagrange, we were laser focused on building incredibly valuable zero knowledge technology that could transform computation on chain through co-processing and certain cross-chain properties. Over time, we've found a much larger market that Lagrange principally focuses on, which is the application of zero knowledge proofs to add safety, privacy, and verifiability to AI. So effectively taking commonly used machine learning models and being able to prove the correctness of inference on those in security critical settings, such as on-chain or off-chain in things like aerospace defense, healthcare, and financial services. So that's my background. That's what Lagrange does. That's our journey. We're very lucky early on that we built a fantastic research team. Our chief scientist, Babis, chairs the cryptography department at Yale. And we have a fantastic group of researchers on our team, people like Dimitris Papadopoulos, Shravan Srinivasan, Nicola Gai, and just, what I'd say industry leaders in both the fundamental understanding of applied cryptography and the application of it to relevant industry problems. And so my advice to the second point of your question to young founders is you should never be pursuing an idea that you just think is a good idea. You should look for justification from market for your idea as soon as possible. That's the main issue founders generally face. They say the market doesn't get me, the market doesn't get me. Well, no, you don't get the market. When you build something that is valuable, you receive signals from the market. Those signals can be customers paying money to use your thing. They can be venture investors looking to deploy capital so that you can scale your thing. But generally, there's a financial exchange that happens that is a very strong indicator that what you're doing is useful. I've built many things in my life, and the majority of them are useless. And the way I can tell that they were useless is that nobody paid me for them and nobody wanted to invest in them. I've been very fortunate that there's been a few things that I've had the privilege of building that weren't useless. And those were the ones that became very evident very quickly that people were willing to finance or pay for. And so my advice for young founders is to find that thing.
Awesome. I think it's a great advice, and I think the playbook is pretty straightforward. See the demand. If there is some demand from either of the investors, customers, or the use cases which are there, then it's the right path. Or just keep banging around. So amazing thing. Ismail, I want to go a bit dive into Lagrange. I think it's been a phenomenal journey from the product side as well. I think some amazing stuff into ZK part, and a lot of I think tons of discussion early this year on ZK co-processors and stuff. Would you elaborate more on how exactly the underlying tech works, and also some of some use cases examples if you can give, which are creating some impact in that.
Yeah. So, Lagrange is very lucky that we have the most performant library for ZK machine learning in the space, called DeepProve, developed by our research team. It's over 1,000 times faster than our closest competitor at generating proofs of ML inference, which means that we can actually make practical the use of zero knowledge proofs in security critical settings of AI. And this is, the obvious one everyone listening here would think about, or watching me would think about, is crypto, right? Because it's a crypto podcast. So AI agents on chain, the centralized inference networks that need to spot check the accuracy of inference that's being provided. You can think of like all of the AI L1s that want to have all these AI apps or AI augmented apps building on them, AI yield aggregators, AI trading bots, etc. All of that stuff has an imperative on security because it touches customer funds. And so if it is decisioning the movement of assets by AI, it has an imperative that the AI output is correct. And that's what zero knowledge proofs are singularly able to provide. Now, that's not the only go-to-market that Lagrange focuses on. We work with teams like Intel, NVIDIA, and a bunch of other major cloud providers, as well as people in aerospace defense, healthcare, and a bunch of traditional sectors. And all of these places have an imperative on the security of AI. And that's where Lagrange has been able to distribute its technology outside of crypto that we see massive demand for. You can think about security properties on command and control systems. You can think about edge devices that have to verify the correctness of models that are potentially running on remote servers. You can think of remote servers that want to verify the correctness of inference that's running on edge devices in maybe more decentralized contexts of fleet management for drone swarms. There's a bunch of fantastic use cases of the technology that we develop targets in those verticals. Crypto obviously is very close to our heart, but it's very far from the only vertical that we've been able to distribute into.
Awesome. I think pretty sure. I think a lot of these use cases will have like a varied impact, and as we go, as crypto adoption becomes mainstream, and a lot of things goes on. Ismail, one follow-up question to this amazing tech stack that you've built, and I also overheard from few developers right early where they initially are probably not into that entrepreneurship side, but they want to try out, and they want to work on cutting edge sort of tech to develop some sort of mini applications on top of it. Have you guys seen anything of that sort? And Lagrange over there, where people like developers have come in, like micro teams, 2-3 people,
Yeah.
build some use cases. Could you highlight some examples, because it will be inspiration for a lot of these guys to also explore and build?
Yeah, I mean, to be fully transparent, we generally don't work with small teams. I think it's a lot of work. I think it's great work to do if you have the time. I think giving back is very important. Helping people, hackathons effectively, they're not really making money for the company sponsoring them, but they're nice marketing and you feel good about yourself after them. We earlier in the days of Lagrange, we did work with smaller teams, and some of those teams have become a lot larger. But I would say that it isn't a priority of ours generally to work with very small micro teams. We build what is effectively very expensive and complex technology that's highly relevant for very large market use cases, things like aerospace defense, healthcare, financial services, and in crypto. And so for us, those large markets are where we generally distribute our technology. For developers, the technology is open, it can be used. It's obviously under some restrictive licensing that stops people from being able to fork it. But for research or scientific or hobby purposes, the license is perfectly permissive of that.
Makes sense. Got it. And if there are any in future, any such programs open, I'm pretty sure a lot of devs would be interested in
I'm sure,
getting.
Yeah. I've never seen a dev turn down free money to write code.
Absolutely. Ismail, let's come on to few of the playbooks that probably everyone would like to have, what you followed in Lagrange journey and stuff. So one particular aspect is fundraising, which is really tough, right? I mean, it's like you go with warm connects, but where do you find this warm connects? There's great amount of time which requires to close the round, and particularly in crypto, the narratives change a lot to an extent, and it really becomes difficult,
Yeah.
for younger teams to survive. So, say you are a founder, early stage, you have a bit of connections, but if you are again into the fundraising mode, how would Ismail's strategy be for fundraising? How do you approach, that sort of thing?
This is a great question. So there's a bunch of people in crypto who like on crypto Twitter and like at conferences who are like, oh, I got my first round done in 2 days. It was so easy, fundraising so easy. It wasn't for me. It took me months and months and months to get my first round done. I mean, I failed raising my first round, I think twice before I was able to pull it off. Um, it was a grind, right? It took like there's a lot of funds out there that passed on me multiple times before they committed to my round. I'm not going to say the name of the funds, but they're very, very, very good funds who we know, who we have great relationships with, and who've committed capital to us later. I mean, the reality is like it's like anything else. If you want to accomplish it, you just have to accept that it's going to be very difficult for a lot of people. And maybe you're one of the 100 who happen to have the right connection with the right narrative at the right time. And it's going to be really easy for you. But for the rest of us, it was not easy. And so I had no connections in crypto really when I started Lagrange. I had to kind of grind it out and meet people. I sent hundreds of cold emails, hundreds of cold messages. I went to conferences and I would like hang around events to try to find investors to meet them. And eventually over like 4 or 5 months, I built a really good Rolodex of funds who I knew. And then it let me run a lot tighter of a process to raise capital for my first round once we had a much larger network. And then we were able to obviously grow the team and develop a product commensurately with kind of me developing my network as a founder in capital markets, at that point, private capital markets. But and then since then, we obviously have had tremendous relationship with everyone on our cap table. The second round, we had a tremendous relationship with the lead investor that I think we've been able to continue to this day, Founders Fund, and we've been very, very lucky that we've been able to construct a great cap table. But the feedback I'd give to founders is just grind it out. Like, you just got to put your head down, and if someone passes on, you just come back to them a week later.
Awesome. Yeah. Grind it down and, go hard till,
Yeah.
you achieve it. I think that's, and I think you rightly said there's like probably like a 1% lucky guys who complete in the fast. And I think those days are gone, to be honest, right? I mean, it's now since.
There's repeat founders and people who were in the space as an engineer at an early company that people know very well, and they go do their own thing. And there's a bunch of shadow co-founders you see on Twitter, and you wonder like, why did that guy raise 30 million?
Yeah.
And it goes, oh, because there's someone else back there. And it's like there's always this stuff. And so comparison is like the theft of joy, right? If you look at other people and how easy they were able to raise money and go like, oh, why can't I do that? You're just gonna like eat yourself up. Like don't do that. Just go figure out how you can accomplish what you want to accomplish. That's what effectively I had to do a bunch of times in the history of this company, and that's what I'm gonna keep having to do.
Nice. Awesome. Ismail, moving to the next part, I think, say like founders who have raised their, say, seed round, they've raised like 2-3 million or say like sub 5 million sort of a round.
Yeah.
And now they're into that dilemma whether, that should we launch token or should we go for another round? And specifically the crypto markets, the volatility and stuff, they're just too much of parameters.
Yeah.
Now, you having gone through that journey of raising multiple rounds and launching a token, which is itself a massive thing. I know what sort of pressure you must guys have gone through it, and then again, since the token is out there, it's all public and stuff. So, what would be your advice, specifically given the market conditions that are right now and founders who are in that phase?
Yeah, I that's a really good question once again. So, I think you raised 3-4 million, you need, or 2-3 million, you need to raise another round before launching a token. You would very much struggle to get listings on major venues. I mean, like the security deposits on a lot of the major venues are going to, eat into that range substantially. You need more capital to launch a token than 2-3 million if you want the token to be on major venues and to do well. And so I would highly recommend that a founder who raises that much, doesn't just go launch a token. Where it gets tricky is you raise 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, under 20, 10 to 20, 8 to 20. And people, obviously then think, okay, I can probably get this token out. I have a 10-person team, and probably I can get the thing out with 6 months of runway left, 8 months of runway left. Should I raise more? That's where it gets really tough. And for that, there's no good answer. It just depends on the market sentiment, the appetite for what you do, the narrative you're in, where the other category players are. Are you the first company in your category to launch a token? Are you the last? Things like that. And so that's generally my feedback for founders. Like, just listen to the market. And I also think if there's capital available, and you aren't certain if it's going to be available later, you should consider taking it if the valuations are good for you. I think a lot of founders, they try to optimize for pricing when they should optimize for investor quality and optimize for velocity of business. And if you have good investor quality and you're able to keep your business moving quickly, you'll succeed. If you optimize for price and you lose investor quality or you lose velocity of business, which a lot of founders do, you're not going to certainly do well, right? Like, on the margin, if you launch a token and it does great and you have fantastic revenue and you cover all major venues and your investors are happy and your everything's doing well and your community's happy, and you as a founder have a delta of 5 to 10% because you weren't optimizing for price in your personal holdings, or 5 to 10% of your holdings, it's not going to make or break you at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
What's going to make and break you at the end of the day is if you lose velocity of your business, if your team is unhappy, if your investors are unhappy, if your ecosystem is unhappy, if you don't have a good business fundamental. And so those are all the things that come first.
Yeah, absolutely. Ismail, one follow-up, again, question from, this advice, that you gave is, founders who are looking to launch token or just launch token, in that phase, a lot of times, there's crypto has become so, sort of another bad world through some of the lenses. Is a lot of these guys, think that is product really required? Is there like a real, sort of use cases, or anyone does care about any revenues or something, right? Because in traditional world, the parameters are a whole different. Here, it's a whole different community aspect and stuff. So what would be your strategy, particularly from Lagrange as well, where recently the token is being launched, like focusing on fundamentals, plus how does the community wow happen, where they really look, shit, this is like growing, there's n number of real numbers out there and coming around that. So how would that be structured?
Yeah, so my advice is build a business. That's what Lagrange does. We are a revenue generating protocol. And we're very happy in that decision. It's similar to what I said before. Like, yeah, there's going to be some founder out there you could find who had an easy seed round, an easy Series A, and launched a token with no product or no revenue. And you go, oh, look at how easy he had it. Why is mine not that easy? Like, don't compare yourself to that. It just isn't productive. You should optimize as a founder, not for launching a token, as a company, not for launching a token. You should optimize for building a business. And once you build a business, a token is a capital formation mechanism around that business. That should be the playbook that every operator in the space should target running. It's what we run. It's the objective that we have. Build fundamentals, and then we can, effectively have confidence over long periods of time that the business will continue to grow against its North Star. That's our priority.
Makes sense. Okay. Coming back to the Lagrange part of it, Ismail, I think this year has been really fantastic in terms of regulatory openings and also the price movements and stuff. Mm-hmm. How does the second half of the year looks like for you guys, and also in terms of the innovation aspects, right? I mean, before the podcast you mentioned there are a lot of these research papers and a lot of real hardcore depth technical stuff that you guys also focus. Is that going to be a priority, or is there more like a narrative focus? Let's choose like Web3 AI or ZK sort of things. How does that look like?
Yeah, we're a business that builds on fundamentals. We have one of the largest research teams in the space. Our chief scientist, Babis, is one of the directors in the cryptography department at Yale and a professor there. Dimitris Papadopoulos on our team is a professor at HKUST and is a distinguished researcher on our team. Shravan Srinivasan, Nicola Gai, both are fantastic researchers with PhDs in computer science and applied cryptography. I think our team has 8 or 9 people with PhDs in applied cryptography, plus 3 interns who are doing PhDs in applied cryptography, and an engineering team consisting of many many folks from top FANG and kind of crypto OG research and R&D companies in the space, and then a very dialed in commercial team as well. As a business, we build on fundamentals, and we're going to keep doing that. We have had one of our papers recently accepted into Stanford Blockchain or Science and Blockchain Conference, SBC, this summer. This is the second time in the last 3 years that we've had papers accepted there. We're the only company in the space that's done that. And yeah, we are very, very confident in the technical fundamentals and research fundamentals of what we build. And over time, we think that's what wins, right? Markets go up and down. I'm not a macro guy. My job is not to predict macro. My job is to build a highly performant business that has cutting edge technology that our customers pay for. And across every metric that we assess our growth by that matters, we have had overwhelming success this year, and we expect that and continue to have overwhelming success.
Awesome. As we move to the end of the podcast, Ismail, very, quite, couple of frank questions, say if you were starting building up, right now in these markets and these all stablecoin, Web3 AI, all these narratives sort of, what will be a couple of ideas that you feel, can be a, big shot or something around that?
Yeah, I wouldn't build in a narrative. I just don't think narratives are the right place to build. I would look at a hard business and I would solve a very hard problem. I think the companies that do very well in the space, they solve hard problems. We solve a very hard problem of being able to cryptographically prove AI. We don't run a crappy group of nodes that are restaked with the hope that we could grift somebody into buying a token. We have a scientific team that solves an incredibly large problem that affects many industries. And we commercialize by selling that technology. The businesses that are the most interesting are those that solve real problems. Don't build a blockchain that has no purpose. Don't build, crypto X some random word. Don't go build, another stable coin. Don't go build stable coin as a service and, all of this nonsense. There's already teams that are solving the hard problems there that are incredibly well capitalized. Don't just go and try to copy them and steal a tiny bit of market share and go to zero. Find something that's really, really hard to do, that you need a world-class expert team to do, build that team, and then solve that. That would be my thesis broadly. But there's things in nuclear, there's things in quantum, there's things in obviously cryptography and AI that are not just crypto XAI. There's things like in interpretability algorithms, reasoning algorithms, all of this stuff are hard research questions that need to be solved and commercialized.
Got it. I think quite elaborative and sort of thinking answer. And I think many of these young founders and developers would definitely take on this and really go and actual hard problems which they're passionate about, where they can make a difference. Awesome. Thanks, Ismail, for coming in. We managed to wrap it under the time, and really appreciate you coming, sharing your journey, and then obviously a lot of inspirational stuff to this. And surely we'll see a lot of guys getting inspired and build something meaningful.
Yeah, I think people should build more businesses. It's the foundation of a good economy. People solving hard problems in a free market and competing to build the best solution. So I would love to see more people doing that.
Awesome. Thanks.